official Nexus.
Yeah.
We get him on Thursday night. So
Once in a while.
once in a while. Thank you.
Well, it's good to be with you. It's always a joy and a little intimidating just to be here with you, but it's fun to come and share the word with you a bit. I have some good news and some bad news in regard to Scott. And the good news is looks like he may have gotten a lot of strength back and a lot of pain gone, but the doctor said that because of the scar, he may not be able to do any more swimsuit modeling. So that's not going to be good. Well, that's bad. Just tell him I said that. Okay. We're going to deal with not a light issue. Actually, probably one of the biggest difficult questions. And that song that Lonnie just sang kind of helps us to understand that we're just passing through. This is not our home, okay? That there's a plan that God has prepared that's going to redeem and restore this broken earth. But it is broken. And I mean, it's kind of messed up. If you watch the news today, our government's perfect, man. They got it all together. And everything's going to be good, right? No, it just seems so weird and so shaky and almost insane to me a lot of times what's going on. But the question that I want to deal with today is really kind of a difficult one. Is God really in control? In the midst of everything that we have, in the midst of the difficulties of our life. You know, we've lived long enough, most everybody lived long enough in this room, where you've had some awesome days. And you can look back on those days and just remember and so thankful. Special like snapshots, memories, kids, grandkids, vacations, homes, horse rides, camping trips, just things that stick in our mind and they're awesome and they make us smile. And then there are some days that we can look back on and you wonder, how in the world did we make it? That the pain was so intense that you didn't think the night would ever be over. Do you know what I'm talking about? Your event. I know if you've lived long enough, you know what I'm talking about. Back in 2010, I went through probably the roughest time in my life. That's just a few years ago. We had planted that church down in Nixon. Been through some, church work is always easy. Everybody's happy. Never any difficulties. And we went through a little bit of a staff change and some adjustments. And man, it went through just a very painful time. I would try to explain it I didn't try to say much to anybody because the pain was more intense that I knew how to deal with. I would just say to those closest to me, I hurt at a level I didn't know you could hurt at. Have you ever been on that day where no words can explain it? I look at that and we look at what's happening in our government, our debt limit crisis. We're just insane, out of control. We know if we take the Word of God and if we understand it well about the end times, we see out of Matthew 24 where Jesus was saying, here's what it's going to begin to look like at the end of the age. And like I said, it's hard for us to know exactly, but man, it looks like we're close. Looks like we're getting close to the end of the age of grace, the age of the time of the church. But there are questions that arise that I think that happen in our life. That what happens, where is God when bad things happen? Where is God when bad things happen? That's a tough question. I'd like to look at it with you for just a few moments tonight. There's two primary ideas that I think that are out in the planet that try to answer that question. One was written by a rabbi by the name of Kushner, and he wrote that book, When Bad Things Happen to Good People. His primary question is, his concept was, can you accept the idea that some things just happen for no reason? There's just randomness in the universe. Look, chance, fate. That's just man's modern answer to the age-old question, why? And when you really get down to boil that down, the bottom line for that rabbi's position was this: God is creator, but he has limited power. God may be good, but he's really disconnected from our everyday life. That's what he was basically saying in that book. Or he might say God is in control of some things, but most of the things are really out of his control. For this rabbi, God is good, but he's not sovereign. I want to talk a little bit of a different picture than that. It's a biblical picture about who God is. And it's an answer to the question that we all will face at some time. If you're in that low place, and the intensity of your pain, and maybe not be physical pain, it may be an emotional pain. Because I think that may be actually worse. When you're hurt so bad that it almost takes your air away. When you're in that condition, the question is, God, where are you? Where are you when that stuff happens? I want to give you a phrase, if you could. This really helped me out when I was in that period of time. I went to some pastors and I said, I need help. And they said, pray and sing. I'm telling you, that didn't really help me. I had a counselor friend of mine, went and talked to him, and I said, I'm hurting so bad, I don't know what to do. And, good counseling stuff, but it didn't help. I couldn't find anybody to help in that level of pain. And then I came up with that. I feel like the Lord gave me 3 phrases. And it came out of this study of Joseph. We're going to look at that in just a moment. But I want you to remember these 3 phrases. They help me out when the pain is so great that I don't know, that you can't breathe. And the question is, where's God? Listen to this. In his love, he always wills what is best for us. In his love, he always wills what is best for us. And sometimes you just got to hang on to that. Okay? I want to add another phrase to it. In his wisdom, he always knows what is best for us. And third, in his sovereignty, he has the power to bring about his will, which is always the best for us. What I'm saying by that, in his love, he has a plan for us. He has a will for us. In his wisdom, that he's working out his plan in us, even when we can't see him, feel him, or hear him. All that we feel at that moment is pain. It does not mean God is gone. It means God is still doing a great work in us. And the third thing is his sovereignty. That means he has power to bring about his will. Let me tell you something. Nothing is going to interrupt God's plan. Nothing. That bad event, that crisis, that health word, that whatever comes along, I'm telling you, is not going to interrupt God's plan for your life. He's sovereign. He is in charge. Now that works really good when things work great. When we get the job we want, awesome. When we get to marry the person of our dreams, yes. When the pregnancy happens after a time of barrenness, and when healing comes supernaturally by the intervention of God, that's easy to worship then. Right? What about when we lose the job? When the person of our dream turns into our nightmare? When barrenness remains? What happens when healing doesn't come by our prayers of faith? In the midst of these, can we still stand in the position that says, in his love, he always wills what is best for us? Can we still stay there? In his wisdom, he always knows what is best for us. Can we still trust him? And in his sovereignty, that he has the power to bring about his will, in which is always best for us, can we trust that he is in full charge? Where's God? That's a big question. Sometimes God's work in our life is beyond our ability to fathom. We just do not see the full picture yet. I believe we will. I believe one day. I believe we'll be able to look back and say, I get it now. I understand why. Now I know why I got to go through that valley. We've all lost somebody that we love. And Psalm 23 comes powerfully to mind when we're walking through that valley. But could I suggest to you that maybe that valley began the day we were born? we're walking through this valley, which is the shadow of death. And it's in that entire journey of that valley that God, Lord says, I'm going to be your shepherd there. I'm going to protect you. I'm going to guide you. I'm going to lead you where there's still waters. I'm going to take you to where there's green pastures. I'm going to restore your soul. And there are times He's going to say, I'm going to make you lie down and rest. Let's think about Joseph just a moment. I'm not going to be able to read much of that story just because the Joseph story is kind of intense and kind of long. But I'm going to tell that as we go into it. I want us to learn a bit from the sufferings that Joseph experienced over in Genesis, starting in chapter 37 through 45. And it says the first suffering, and we'll go through these quickly, is the challenge that accompanies God's will. What I mean by that is, God has a plan for you. And in following that plan, there may be people who do not like what God's called you to do. They may not accept it. They may cause trouble. They caused trouble for Joseph. You remember Joseph was given the ability to have dreams and visions and the ability to interpret. And he told his father, when he was just a teenager, Father, the Lord gave me this vision about, and it kind of sounded like he was going to elevate him even above his father. And his father didn't particularly like it. His brothers not only didn't like it, they tried to get rid of him. So not only did you have the difficulty of accompanying when you're trying to follow God's will, not everybody may like it. And then you have the pain of rejection that comes along. And I don't know about you, I think rejection is probably the most painful emotional pain there can be when we are rejected. I actually think it's a demonic opposite of God's love. And let me just add this extra. Anytime you and I have a sense of rejecting somebody, we're not functioning in God's love. No matter what's happening. If we function out of rejection, I just think it's a very ungodly thing. God's love says, I love you, remember, in your worst days. At your lowest pit is when I died on the cross, He says, for you. There's a love that He says that we're supposed to have. So rejection. He was rejected by his brothers, a scheme to make it look like he was dead, that they actually sold him. And so we have the pain of rejection. We have the pain of the confinement of slavery. Remember, he was sold to Potiphar, an Egyptian captain, and one of Pharaoh's guards. And so he became a slave unjustly, and he was put in a bad place. But every place he wound up, he elevated. Did you notice that? Every place he went, God raised him up. So in Potiphar's house, he moved up to the house management. But then he got into another hurt of character assassination. Has anybody ever said something bad about you? Potiphar's wife tried to seduce him, and then she falsely accused him. Character assassination. Do you understand the pain of all this stuff that Joseph went through? The victim of injustice. Remember, he was put in prison for nothing, stayed there for 2 years, and thought he was forgotten by everybody, and a victim of injustice. But all of that suffering was used of the Lord to develop Joseph and to constantly put him in the right place. It's kind of a big picture here. The thought is that God has never messed up in your life. Never. You can look back and you're going to see some hurt. You're going to see some brokenness. You're going to have some sense of failure. You're going to have some sense of injustice. You're going to have some rejection by people. And I want you to understand something. The question rises in that pain, God, where are you? And God says, I'm right here. Because I have a design for you. And here's what I want you to understand. He's saying, you will not miss it. You're not going to miss what God has designed for you. See, the enemy comes and his constant information in our life is that you're useless. You're really not very good, and you're never going to amount to anything. And he's good at telling us that all the time. He'll reinforce it by people saying stuff to us. The reason He's so strong at trying to get you to sit down and be quiet and not make waves and not become who God created you to be is because you are a threat to His kingdom. Now, but you're actually going to be actually functioning under the lordship of Christ in days ahead. It says you're going to rule and you're going to reign in restoring a broken earth. You're being prepared. You're being prepared when you're having that party and you're feeling the top of the world. You're being prepared when you're scraping the bottom. You know what happens when we're down at the bottom? We get to the place where we say, I don't know if I'm going to survive this. You ever said that? You ever felt that? I don't know if I can make this. And literally a part of you doesn't. A part of you dies in that. And you come out of it weak, humble, with empty hands. And God says, good, that's exactly where I want you to be. Now I'll use you. Now I can use you. See, we always thought it's the biggest, strongest, loudest, best. That's what the earth says, what the world says. God says, I take the foolish things of this earth and I'll use them. In your weakness, He says, I'm going to be strong. See, God's kingdom is the opposite of this kingdom, of this earth. This earth says you got to be big and you got to mash people in order to be as big as you can get as much as you can get, be as powerful as you can be. And the Lord says, you want to be great in my kingdom? You go to that low place and you serve. The greatest in His kingdom is the servant. And I'm just saying that God, in the midst of our difficulties, has not left us. Matter of fact, He's very close to us in those days. Ultimately, remember where Joseph wound up? Through all of that pain. Remember where he wound up? Right up next to Pharaoh. Getting ready for, and God told, remember that vision that happened? There's going to be 7 fat cows, followed by 7 lean cows. God told him, here's what's going to happen. It's going to be prosperous for 7 years. Save up. And he went to the boss. He went to Pharaoh and said, we need to stockpile for this 7 years. Why? God's told me a lean 7 years is coming. God used all of that. High days, low days, lost days in jail, days of accusation, of false accusation. Every time God was shaping and putting this man into a proper place. For a particular day when He could not only save his family, but literally all of the known world at that time was rescued through that one man by the name of Joseph. He said this to his brothers when they came to him and they finally realized who he was. You remember that part of the story? He said, don't be afraid. Am I in the place of God? Because they thought he should have messed with them. He should have killed them, put them in jail. He said, am I God? No. You intended me harm, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what was not being done by the saving of many lives. Do you understand? You will never be out of God's plan. He's sovereign. See, a lot of us grow up and live most of our life thinking we've messed it up. We thinking we failed. We get up here to the upper end of our life and we think, man, I just didn't make it. I didn't accomplish all that I had intended. I want to tell you something that I believe is in God's Word. You're not going to miss it. Why? Because it's really not dependent upon you. This God we serve, He loves us enough that He wants His perfect will in our life. He is powerful enough to accomplish His will. And He's king, sovereign, and He's going to make it happen. What does that do for me? It gives me a little place to take a breath. And I hope it gives you a place to take a breath. I haven't missed it. God's plan is being fulfilled through my life. Whether I can see it completely all, now or not. You will see it. Here's the bottom line of truth. If there is a single event in the universe that can occur outside of God's plan, control, then we can't trust Him. I don't serve a God that this is out of control. Matter of fact, this world is out of control, but if you read the Scripture, it tells us it's going to get out of control. He tells us exactly what it's going to be as we get toward the end here. So it's not out of His control. He just said this is a process. Proverbs says this, many are the plans in a man's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails. Do you hear that? We have all kinds of plans. What's going to prevail? God's purpose. Who can speak and have it happen if the Lord has not decreed it? We make plans. We give all of our life, but they only succeed as they fulfill the purpose of God in our life. Do you understand there's no contingency plan with God? Our unexpected, our forced change of plans is a part of His plan. God's never surprised. He's never caught off guard. He's never frustrated by unexpected developments. God does as He pleases, and that which pleases Him is always good for His glory and good for His people. Both of those. Everything God does is for His glory and for His people. And He won't sacrifice either of those. See, the overarching purpose of all of this life is for believers is this, that it's not for our happiness. It's not for our having all the material possessions that we want. If you'll read Scripture carefully, it's the overarching purpose of God in our life is that we're being conformed into the image of His Son. Do you understand that God does not love? God is love. That's different. Do you understand? We understand how we're supposed to love people. But God doesn't have to love people because God is love. Do you understand then, if we're being conformed into the image of Christ, what would that look like? I think we've made it all kinds of big things, and it's actually one. That we can love. Love those that are close to us unconditionally. Because we know this. We are going to be conformed to the likeness of His Son. Romans says this, Paul said it. For we know that in all things God works for the good of those called according to His purpose. For those God foreknew, He predestined to be conformed to the likeness of His Son, so that we might be the firstborn among many brothers. If you'll hear that carefully, you're not going to miss it. You were predestined to be conformed. Not by your power, not by your goodness, but by God's design in our life. Why am I telling you all this? What's my motivation here? Let me summarize it like this. We can trust Him, which gives us peace. How many of us really have peace? How many, I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand, how many wrestle with a tornadic thought? Worries, anxiety, stress, and it literally gets like a tornado in our mind and just goes and goes and goes and goes and wears us out. I'm hoping that you understand you haven't missed it because you are predestined by God, not because of our goodness or our badness, but because God predestined you to be conformed to the image of His Son, that you're in the good days and the bad days, all of that, He's working together for the good of those called. And you can trust Him. Peace. I'm hoping that it gives you peace. It gave me some peace when I had a storm. We can commit to Him not only the ultimate outcomes of our lives, the heaven and the future, but we can also commit to Him our intermediate events, our circumstances that will bring us to that outcome. So that, what did James say? I used to just think that's crazy. James said something like this. Consider it all joy, my brothers, when you encounter various trials. I kept saying, what? Why would you consider that joy? Because knowing the testing of your faith develops perseverance. And perseverance must finish its work so that you may be mature and complete and not lacking anything. What is that? You stick to it. You stay faithful. You don't quit. You remain. Those tough times God's using to shape you into future rulers with Him. That's what the Scripture says. So what does that tell you? First of all, I want it to give you peace. Second of all, I want you to rest. Take a breath. God's going to do that work in you. He is doing that work in you. It isn't all about you. It isn't all about your efforts. God is going to do a work. Rest. Peace. Rest. And the last one. We can have hope and courage knowing that no one can thwart God's plan for your life. You're not going to miss it. What does that give you? Peace. Rest. Hope. Where is God? He's sovereign. I want to say it one more time what I said at the beginning. In His love, He always wills what is best for us. In His wisdom, He always knows what is best for us. And in His sovereignty, He has the power to bring about His will and that which is best for us. Do you understand that? The God we serve, we're okay. We're not okay because of us. We're okay because of the God we serve. I hope you have peace. And I hope you have some rest in that. And I hope you find your hope is in the Lord. God bless you.